Welcome to the first instalment of the Sewmotion Mystery Pieces subscription box. A mystery. And the mystery is now all to be revealed. This is what you can make from your kit that you should have received by now. So as you can see, it's a grandmother's fan wall hanging made from Liberty Prints in their winter flower show collection. So you can make this either with machine piecing, foundation paper piecing, or hand piecing. And you have the instructions for both in the kit and the templates for both in the kit. So I have two video tutorials, one for foundation paper piecing and one for hand piecing. So as I said, you've got all the full instructions and templates. You don't need to photocopy anything. You've got enough templates in the kit that you need. You've got actually a couple more of these than you need, so if you make a mistake you've got some extras. And this one is for your arc pieces to be traced onto your freezer paper, that's also included in the kit. If you prefer to make it a hand sewing project, you've got a set of hand sewing templates, so you cut these out. These don't include the seam allowances, so you add those as you're cutting out the fabrics. It's all explained in the instructions anyway, so it's all good. So as you can see in the finished sample, it's made up of 16 grandmother fan blocks with a border and binding. And then I have hand quilted it. You can choose to hand quilt or machine quilt. I'll have links. There'll be another video for the hand quilting, and there's a link to the concentric circles machine quilting that I'll leave in the newsletter. So the instructions in the kit are completely thorough, photos and everything, but if you prefer to learn by video tutorials, then I've got these series to help you along. So without further ado, let's get on with the machine piecing. Right, so this is your grandmother's foundation paper piecing template. So we're going to do 16 of these. So to start off with, you can see there's 6 pieces and they're all named 1 to 6. So we're going to crease down, so the lines between each of the shapes are your sewing lines. So we're going to crease down those first to start you off. Okay, so just place your card on each line and have a nice sharp fold in the paper back like so. This just gives you a guide when you crease them back later, just makes it a bit easier. Okay, so go all the way along until you've got a unit like this. Now, bear in mind when you do a foundation paper piecing, if you leave out of your head that it's back to front, you just follow this method, concentrate on the method, then you'll get the hang of it. It can be a bit daunting sometimes, it took me a while to get hold of it, the hang of it, but it's fine once you get in the rhythm of it. So what you've got to bear in mind is your fabrics are actually going to be on the blank side of your paper template, and you're going to sew on the written side. Okay, so when you're deciding which order to put your fabrics in, have your paper that way up so that number 1 is on your left hand side. Okay, so there's my finished block there, so I'm going to have this order in the fabrics. Okay, so this is fabric 1, so if you place that on top of that shape for now, that's going to be your fabric 1 and that's going to be your fabric 2. So then just turn that and put that right side down on top of fabric 1. Okay, so then flip the unit. So now as you can see, if you position your paper template so that that fabric covers shape 1, and this gap here between the fabric and this line is approximately 1/4 of an inch. It can be a bit bigger if you want, you've got plenty of space here. Okay, so just hold those in place, and you're going to sew down that line, starting and stopping in the seam allowance. Break thread, and flip it to the back, or the front rather, and flip the fabric over. That's the second fabric. So you can finger press that, or if you've got a seam roller, you can just press that. But I find it easier and just as good just to finger press it. So flip it back to this side, and now you're going to trim off that excess. So put your card along the line between shapes 2 and 3. Fold the paper back, and you can see you've got plenty of seam allowance or excess fabric there. So you just need to trim so you've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you've got to add a 1/4 ruler, which has got a lip on it. You butt the lip up against the piece of card and trim. If you haven't got a 1/4 inch ruler, you can use just a normal quilter's ruler and just line up that 1/4 inch line along the edge of the paper, or the card rather, and trim. Okay, so then now you've got a nice 1/4 inch to line up your next piece. So take fabric 3, line up against the edge of that fabric face down. Again, just checking that you've got enough excess over each side. Take that to the machine and sew down the line between 2 and 3. And again, flip it back, finger press, and then trim your excess. So it's like a stitch, flip and trim type routine, really, rhythm. Okay, so then now you need fabric 4. So you can get through these quite quickly, really, once you get in the rhythm. You can chain piece each piece, but to be honest, these bits are quite small. You can just do them separately. It won't take you long at all. So the flip, especially if you're new to foundation piecing, just concentrate on one panel at a time. Flip, trim, your finished arc, piece arc, which I've now pressed. So now I'm going to use my quilter's ruler just to trim off all the excess fabric. So on the straight edges, just trim each of those, the ruler. And then when you come to the curved edges, you can use your rotary cutter if you're happy with that, or you can use a pair of scissors, which I am perfectly happy with. There's your finished piece grandmother's fan. So once you've trimmed your grandmother's fan, we're just going to take the papers out. So the simplest way to do this, just fold back the paper, fold it backwards and forwards a couple of times just to loosen up the stitches, and then gently tear the fabric. Okay, then just keep going through. You might get a bit of the paper stuck in the stitches, that's fine, just pull it away. And because the stitches are quite fine, the stitches should stay where they are and the paper will just come away from itself, from the fabric. So just fold it and tear. Try not to pull the fabric around too much as well, because you've got biased edges. You don't want to fold it out of, pull it out of shape. There you go. So they all come along away. You've got a nice pieced flat panel. So now we're going to sew the smaller curve shape and the bigger curve shape to make the square block. So when you're cutting your two shapes out of your red fabric, what I've done is cut a 6-inch strip by the width of the fabric out of the red, and then fold it in half again, so you've got 4 layers. And then in your freezer paper, if you trace these two shapes out in your freezer paper as they are in the template, so these include the seam allowance, and then if you then, for the straight edges, use your quilter's ruler just to trim down, so you're going right against the paper, and you're going to go slowly so you can cut through all 4 layers at once. Obviously I'm doing this on my extension table just for the camera, but you're probably better off doing it on your work top. Okay, so you're going to trim down there. So try and keep, if you press the fabric and the seam allowance all in one go, when you press the fabric it kind of sticks together a bit better, so it shouldn't move around, so just be careful as you go. So trim down this edge, and then your 2 ends. And then when you get to the curved edge, so you can do this in 2 layers or 1 layer if you want, draw it out and cut with scissors, or if you're careful, use your rotary cutter and then just go gently and slowly along that curved edge on the edge of the freezer paper. I find a nice new blade is good with this. Who doesn't love a nice new blade? Okay, so just move the paper as you go, or move the unit as you go around rather than rotary cutter, and then you'll get a nice smooth curve, hopefully. There you go. So then if you peel off that top layer of freezer paper, and you'll have 4 of those shapes all in one go. So out of that 6.5 inch strip, I would then repress. So obviously you can take this off and reposition it as many times, 5 or 6 times probably. So then I would reposition that there. This is all in instructions as well. Reposition that there, press that down and cut those out, and then you should be able to get another, so you need 8 out of each strip. So you're going to cut 2 6-inch strips out of the red. So you'll get 4 of those there and 4 of those there. So that one strip will give you 8 shapes. Yeah, 8 in each shape. So for now I've pressed the freezer paper down of the small arc onto the top there, and again I'll use the straight edge of the ruler to cut the corner pieces. And then the rotary cutter to cut around that curved edge. So then peel off that top layer, and you've got 4 small arcs. Right, so now we're going to attach the small arc to the fan first and then the bigger arc. Okay, so it's best to put your concave edge on top of your sewing piece, okay, when you're sewing. So first of all, we're going to find the center point of that curved edge there. So fold your small piece in half and finger press the crease at the center point. Place that face up, and then turn and flip your arc down, and then you know that that's the center because that's the center seam. So you're going to line that up with your crease mark, and then also if you check that that line is in line with that corner there, you know that that's going to be straight. So then you're going to put a pin in there, and then if you then swing this around, so you basically want that straight edge to go line against the straight edge of the arc, okay? So you're just going to put those 2 together all the way along the seam, so you get a nice square edge. Put a pin in there, and the same the other end. Turn it so it's line against that edge, I find it easy just to put a pin in the other way there, just to hold them in place for now. And then if you want to, you can add a couple more pins. So you'll find that that edge, all these edges are quite malleable. You can manipulate them into the curve. So if you add a couple of more pins just to hold it in place. Along that seam. Okay, let's take your pinned unit to the machine. You're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way along the curve. Now, as you see, you're going to have gathers here and there, so we're going to just lift the foot as we go to manoeuvre the fabric. So start sewing, go slowly, and then when you get to a seam, just lift your foot, make sure the needle's still down, lift your foot, and then just pull the fabric, the top piece of fabric around as you go. Okay, so keep moving it, and just keep sure that this line here is still, the seams are still lined up. All the way around. So once you've sewn your piece, then just flip it open. And if you press it so this seam goes towards the centre, so you've got that just lying flat like that, you should have a nice smooth curve. Now if these edges aren't completely straight, don't worry about it, we're going to trim the block down anyway. So there you go, I've given that a press, so that's nice and flat. So then again, now we're going to sew with the concave edge at the top. So again, fold this unit in half and crease that centre point there, and then pin that on top of there. So again, you know where your centre seam is on the fan, and then just line that up with that corner there and put a pin in there. And then again, swivel each side round, so that's lying adjacent down that edge there, and the same with the other end. And then you can add a few more pins along that same. Your outer edge now, so we're just going to again sew 1/4 inch seam allowance around this edge. So start sewing, and if you feel you've got a pucker, then just lift your foot, rearrange the fabric, and just take it slowly as you go. So you might get a few creases in it, but they're not gathers, they're just creases, so give that a good press, and then your block is finished. So as you can see, this is my pieced block. There's 16 grandmother fan blocks in total, 4 blocks in each row and 4 rows. So this is my chosen layout. There are variations on the instructions, you can do your own thing. So sew them together, matching your seams nicely at the corners of each block. And then I've attached a 3-inch border in the blue, so that's cut from 3-inch strips. So if you're machine sewing, then obviously just attach it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you're hand sewing, draw a 1/4 inch line, a 1/4 inch mark in from the edge, so you can follow that line when you're sewing. Finally, press your seams outwards from the front, then layer it up and baste it, ready for quilting.